on YouTube. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. So here's the thing. When we do a radio show, it's only an hour. And sometimes an hour can be a lot of time, but other times an hour is simply not enough. But we do like to give our listeners, the full story. So in order to give people the full story, we just basically tell everybody on the radio to catch us here on YouTube. So if you're just joining us on YouTube from the prior YouTube, welcome. If you're joining us from MFM, welcome aboard. And so what this show is about a discussion with Linda Presgrave and Stan Chovnick, who are friends of mine and friends of the show. And they are with Metropolitan Records, MetropolitanRecordsNYC.com. And they just produced and have published a great new jazz album called Along the Path. And when I say new, it's new. It's not old stuff repackaged as new. This is new stuff.
In fact, it's not even out yet.
Well, by the time they hear it, it's
okay.
One of those things. And there's some great liner notes. And what we kind of learned about in the first hour of the radio show was that a lot of the music in the album was inspired by two separate trips, one to Asia, one to France. And in many ways, this is the soundtrack that accompanied all the sights, the sounds, the food, the mood on their trip. And it has a tremendous number of great musicians playing along. It has phenomenal music composed and arranged by Linda. And they were nice enough to be on the radio and share all of that with me, which gives me a chance to share all of that with all of you out there in Radio Land and now on the internet as well. So we were kind of discussing before with the hard break, and the hard break is you're out of time, the people in the band. So we were talking about the people in the band. So just to kind of catch up, it was Linda, Harvey S., who's acoustic and electrical bass, Allison Miller, phenomenal drummer and gongs, Stan, who does soprano sax, Todd Herbert, who has some albums on the Metropolitan Records label of his own. He plays the tenor sax, and we were basically going to talk about Vincent Herring.
Right, Vincent Herring. My favorite alto player, definitely. Great jazz player. He also happens to be a friend of ours, and I was very pleased that he consented to play on our album because he's very much in demand and out and about all the time. And I actually kind of wrote this hearing an alto sax in my mind and thinking how great it would be if got him to play it. And
on Blues for a Rainy Night.
Blues for a Rainy Night, yeah. He plays on that. He also plays on Plus Picasso with the three bulls of the saxophone section. And so that's Vincent Herring.
And he's also on some Metropolitan Records recording.
Right.
He has one recording. It's called Sterling Place All Stars, where it's actually four musicians who lived at the time on the same block on Sterling Place in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That reminds me of when I went to Memphis, Tennessee. I went to Stax Record, and they showed like all these people in Memphis who lived sort of all near each other. And I don't really remember who specifically they were, but it was like over here was Tina Turner, and 3 blocks down was somebody else, and then Aretha Franklin was born 5 blocks in this direction, and when you looked at the map and you're like,
it's
wow,
crazy, right?
wow, it's like what was it? What was either in the water or the food that really brought out just incredible musicians?
Yeah, interesting.
In sort of a very short geographic distance.
Yep.
So,
same thing.
And then we have.
And then MJ Torito.
Yes.
We have a real variety on this album because we have your standard piano trio setup. We have a quartet with Stan on soprano. We have a quartet with Todd on tenor. We have a quartet with Vince on alto, and we have a quintet with various people, sextet with everybody except for the vocalist who's on one tune, which is Berta Surratt, The Story.
The Story, because that's the rest of the story.
Yeah, because what that is I work with MJ as a very fine vocalist and composer and writer in her own right, And I work in a group with her group called Ladies' Day, and it's 4 women, three instrumentalists, plus she's a vocalist, and she does all music by, whatever music we can find by the great artists out there who happen to be women, and they're either composers or lyricists or both. And so she asked if she could write lyrics to one of my tunes, which is, to me, a very sacred thing. And I said, well, she asked about Berta Surratt, and I said, sure, if I can tell you what the story is and you can write it about that. Because I know sometimes people will get a tune and they'll have lyrics and it'll be like, oh, this guy's the greatest love of my life. And then you find out, this guy actually wrote the tune and, like, maybe his wife committed suicide or something. And you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't fit. So I said, if you write it about what it was about, and she wrote these great lyrics because she told the story of, I heard this bird. It was hot out. And it was hot in France that night. And I went out on the balcony because I couldn't sleep. There was no air conditioning. And I heard this bird. And then I heard this other bird, like this call back and forth of the birds. And she told the story. And so I thought what a great thing it would be to just put that on the CD. So that's the story. Now, so that's all the musicians.
Do you actually have a picture of the birds?
I don't. I couldn't even find out what the bird was. I kept talking to people in France, the people that sponsored this. What is this bird? I was, singing the bird call and everything, and nobody knew. So it's still a mystery.
Wow. Because, in Puerto Rico, there's something called the coqui, a little tree frog, and they make this they make this little noise that goes, coqui.
Yes.
But it's very hard to find them. I went to Puerto Rico, a number of times as a kid on vacation over the summers with my folks. And I even got my scuba certification down there because it was just beautiful down there.
Did you go to the rainforest and look?
I went to El Yunque and never saw a coqui. Just heard them. They are phenomenal and interesting, but couldn't find. And I was ready to buy basically a nuclear powered telescope. With like a 5-mile range to sit in a soundproof room to see if I could just see what one of them looked like.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like that, except I didn't go to those extremes that you did.
So I got to ask, when you sit down and compose a piece, what is that process like? Because everybody starts with either a blank computer screen or a blank piece of paper, and then something very magnificent happens after a lot of things in between.
Right.
What is that process for you?
Well, I think it's good that you understand the process is different for everybody, because I didn't compose for a very long period of time. And then I remember after I came to New York, and I started to take some lessons from very fine jazz pianist Joanne Burkeen. And she just at the first lesson I went to her, she said, well, you have to start composing. And I was like, oh, okay. She said, yeah, bring back something next week. I'm like, what is she talking about? I was like, okay. So I just kind of did it, and I didn't really know. I just kind of put some little things together and and it turned out to be one of the tunes I play all the time, The Journey. In fact, one of my CDs is called The Journey. And so I kind of came at it with a really strange way, and then I started getting interested in composing, and I started to realize the one thing I need is I usually think about a piece to write, and I think about a structure. Like I say, I would like to write this kind of a piece. Like maybe it's a piece in 3, or maybe it's a bossa, or maybe it's a straight ahead jazz piece, or a song that tells a story. And I kind of try to come up with, okay, that's where I'm going. So that's my idea to start with. And then I start to think about if there's a particular key, because, the keys all have a different sound to them. So I'll think, well, I want to do minor. Do I want to do this key or that key? And I kind of have probably a pretty straight way of starting it, because I need a little structure. And then once I get that, I can go back. Like when I did the Saxa View, the tune for Tokyo, it's like I started to write a piece, and then I could not find the piece of, the manuscript paper I was writing on. So I started over, and then I started to write this thing, and then I found the old piece, and I ended up able to link them together, and I think it came out, with kind of an interesting format, just because I came back to it and I was like, oh, here's that, and I put it together. So for me, I need a little structure. So, a friend of mine who's a very fine composer in St. Louis told me that he keeps a little file of just little bits and pieces of, if something comes to him, like a rhythm or a phrase or something, he actually has a file that he puts these things in. And maybe if he gets a commission or something, he'll go in there and pull out a phrase or two and do it. So that's, sometimes I'll say to Stan, I don't know where this tune came from. Sometimes it's like the Bird of Surrett. I came home from France, and I literally sat down at the keyboard and just kind of plunked it out. And that's unusual for me. So what I know is sometimes I don't know where it comes from. I really do think there is some inspiration from somewhere that happens, that all these things collide and they come together.
Do you walk around with like a notebook and pens and keep something by your bedside in case you wake up?
No, she does not.
No, I don't.
Tape recorder?
I'm not like that at all.
She's not at all like that, no.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'm just, feel like I'm doing more and more of it and enjoying it more and more. So it just kind of continues to evolve, But I still have some tunes from the beginning that I go back and play that are, still some of my favorites. So I don't know. For me, it's all different reasons.
Well, no, I like to ask because I'm a writer, and I never really know. I don't know. It kind of comes from the brain to the fingertips on the keyboard. I can't even really use pen and paper anymore, and I need to sort of get it all out, and then I need to edit it a lot. But that's how I sort of write, because I write all kinds of things. Look, I wrote 2 books, and I write things in law. I write all kinds of stuff, and a lot of times I'm not really sure. In fact, a lot of times when I make motions, written motions, I'm not exactly sure how the motion's going to go. I just start venting.
You're a jazz musician.
Yeah.
There you go.
I just start venting, and then I start looking at it as if I was reading it from, like the judges or someone else's perspective, and I'll just start kind of reformatting and saying, all right, a little over the top, a little too hot, and then I'll just start shaping it, and then that's how I sort of work with it. But I always like to ask other creative people because everybody does it differently, and somehow it goes from the neurons to the fingertips, and then it gets expressed some way, but there's really no way to explain it, and it's almost hard to teach it. Like if someone said to me, you need to teach writing, I don't know if I could really do that.
Yeah.
I think I'm a pretty good writer, and I think I'm a pretty good, talk show person, and I know how to talk in court, but I don't know how to explain.
Well, I think certain people have, like Linda knows. Linda is a good teacher. She knows how to teach. I play the instrument. You would not want to take lessons from me because I assume like all that all these things and you don't know it, and so instead of me starting from the beginning and saying you need to do this, I'm just assuming that like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then Linda's looking at me like, what are you talking about? You can't assume this. So some people.
Yeah, you should have seen him try to teach me how to play chess.
I assume she knew a lot. So I'm saying that some people have a knack for teaching. Some people are great musicians or players or whatever, and everybody has different capacities of teaching and that.
And where it comes from.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, when I took some golf lessons, there's some people who say, all right, your left foot back more, elbow higher, and yet when I golf with some of my friends and I'll have a lousy shot, I'll say, what did I do wrong? And they were just like, I don't know.
It's true.
They'll just be like, you just stink. I don't know. It's all wrong.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about your hope for the future.
Well, that's Stan's. This seemed like a good, Stan wrote this piece, and I'll let him talk about it. It just seemed like it was a good place to fit, because between just getting all these worlds together, and then, I don't know, it's been kind of a tough year for America, I think, and not just America, but the world. And it's, I thought it was a good thing to put on the CD. So I'll let him speak to it.
Well, I wrote the song basically just as some kind of almost like a meditative or prayer song for me to just play once in a while when I'm practicing. And I don't know, I kind of liked it, and then I just said to Linda, let's try it. And then we did it, and we actually were in the recording studio, and we played it, and everyone I felt played very inspired. But the thought behind the tune is that everybody in the world should be entitled to be free, and without people telling them or restricting them on how they should live, and all these rules, and everybody with this power trip on I need to control you, or you need to do this, and this is the way the world is. And people look at the world in a very narrow way. Everybody is always thinking that the way that they live the world is the right way. And of course that's not true. The way that you live the world is the way you're entitled to live it. If I believe in one thing, if I'm not hurting anybody, I should be free to do that. And I feel that very strongly about that, and so I entitled it Universal Freedom, and every time I play it, I feel the energy of feeling that the whole world should be free, and whether or not there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, I hope for the future that one day everybody will be free to do what they want, to be kind, loving, not hurting anybody, but just be free to express themselves and live the way they want without other people infringing on that. So that's what that tune's about.
Well said. Now, in many ways, is jazz sort of one of the venues where you can sort of be freer than other things?
Yeah.
Because
it definitely is. Although, even in jazz, you get some people who think that things, you should be playing this tune like that. I hate when somebody plays a tune and somebody says, you didn't play it the way the original did. Well, what, if I was going to play it the way the original did, why wouldn't I just put on the old recording? Why do I want to do it? Do something your own way. And so I think, yes, jazz is definitely a freer way, and I think that I like that freedom, too, of doing that.
Well, what's interesting is one day I was experimenting with a radio idea, and I listened to almost every version of All Along the Watchtower, which was a Dylan song.
Oh, that's interesting.
And, Dylan originated it, but many people associate it with Hendrix.
Right.
And Hendrix did just an amazing job. But there were all these other people, Dave Mason and I think the Grateful Dead, and a lot of other people all did All Along the Watchtower. And when I was listening to all the different versions, it's actually amazing how different they are.
I understand, yeah.
Even though it's the same song, it is really different, done by different people. And I forgot, there was one version by, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he did a great version. And I'm like, how come I've never heard of this before?
Yeah.
And it was kind of amazing,
Yeah,
well, I think that's important. I mean, if you're going to do something, do your own spin on it, and don't feel like, okay, I have to sound like Bob Dylan. It's like, well, no. Or now I have to sound like Hendrix. It's like you are doing it because you're expressing yourself, and that's what it's all about. Not imitating Hendrix or imitating Dylan or whoever.
Right. Good example is like when I think Aerosmith did Come Together,
Right.
And, look, Stevie Ray Vaughan did Superstition, and I thought he did a really great job on that one. And his video, by the way, was really funny because he's doing all these things where he's walking under ladders and horseshoes and all the things, and at the very, well, I won't spoil, but at the very, very end, Stevie Wonder makes a guest appearance, which is really funny, and it's just the whole thing was it was very funny and very well done. In fact, there was an interview with Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he talked about that on Rockline. And speaking of which, Rockline was a radio interview format where rock bands were interviewed by Bob Coburn, and that is ending this year, 2014, which is kind of a shame because, as we were kind of talking before, radio is really changing, and in my opinion, not for the better. You know, have you guys ever? What do you guys see about sort of jazz on satellite? How's that working out? Or is that just sort of they just keep playing the same stuff within the same genre?
Well, do you want to speak to that, Stan?
Well, I think that, again, it's like, in some ways, it's similar to rock in the sense that you get to hear a lot of the old things, and you don't get to hear as much new things. And I think that that's a problem with both rock and jazz. That and then I don't know if I should address it or not, but I think that the pop music or the music that they play today is just like very sterile. It's like when you listen to, if we were watching recently, actually, Woodstock was on TV, and I was watching it, and the energy that these people put in, whether it was Santana or 10 Years After, or Richie Havens or they were putting all this sweat and energy into this, and they were playing the solos and the music. And then you put on a TV show, which like The Voice, and they're telling them, when you interact, make sure you smile, make sure you shake hands with the person in the first and second row, and make sure that you're wearing the proper outfit. Richie Havens didn't wear the proper outfit, but I love the way he sounds. And I think, to me, it's about the music. And the problem is, I think that today, it's more about what these people are wearing, or
it's the image.
how they can move their feet while they tap their feet while they're playing. Does any of those old rock groups tap their feet? Did Jimi Hendrix tap his feet? I'm saying it's like it's about the music, and I think that that's the thing that's missing.
Oh, absolutely. When you look at all the older music, these people were not necessarily photogenic.
Exactly.
Well groomed.
Exactly, right.
Stylish looking.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were kind of kooky.
I understand that.
Like Stevie Ray Vaughan with his hat with the feather, and
right.
sort of.
Or Joe Cocker, you wouldn't exactly say, let's put him on The Voice because he has like these great movements or something. You know what I mean? But I love it. I love his music. I used to go see him. I saw him with Mad Dogs and Englishmen. I saw him, but because it was about the music. It wasn't about what kind of show he was putting on. And to me, that's what it's about. If you're going to listen to music, you should be putting feeling and energy into the music.
Well, the other thing I think is that, like Joe Cocker, like he did a great Beatles cover. She came into the bathroom.
Yeah.
But nobody was afraid to be original, and now everybody seems to want to fit a formula.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And it was interesting. Like there's a great jazz sax player named Bill Evans, and he did this great CD of it's like a tribute to Cole Porter. It's all Cole Porter tunes, and they did these wonderful arrangements. Who's the piano player, Stan? I can't think. It was.
I can't think.
Oh, he's such a good arranger and stuff too. They did these fantastic arrangements of Cole Porter tunes, and we read this review, and we loved this CD, because you don't hardly know it's Cole Porter, and I love Cole Porter, but I'm saying like what you can do with these vehicles. A song is just a vehicle, whatever the artist does with it, and the review was like, oh, it wasn't close enough to the original song. I forgot what all they said, but it was like, no, that's the beauty of it, was that they took these tunes and just did them in a completely different way. And it's not sacrilegious, it's genius. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, what's kind of sad is, in my opinion today, if the Beatles were actually playing somewhere, as young kids now, in Greenwich Village, I'm not sure they would get a record contract anywhere.
No, that's true.
And I'm not sure that they would actually get airplay.
Right.
even though they were amazingly
really
talented and original, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there right now who are incredibly gifted who aren't getting noticed.
It's true.
Right,
really. It's
right.
True.
I mean, you do. I mean, we do the music because we have to. We love it. We want to do it. If you're not doing it, you're sad.
Well, and we appreciate you putting it on the air.
We
really.
appreciate that very much.
Oh, look, I one of the goals of the show is to put things on the radio and on YouTube that really aren't elsewhere, because just as I don't want to be the cover of it's like it's not like I listen to NPR and then say, oh good, I got to book that guy too.
I understand.
Yeah.
And then I just basically do the same interview, only just in my voice, or a little more local. I really try to do things that are really different, and that's why I have sort of a very eclectic group of music and authors, and there's really no formula. But I think I try to bring diversity and newness.
And we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well,
we appreciate it.
We're all, I guess, speaking of birds of Surrett, we're like birds of the same, improv.
That's true. That's true,
Right.
really.
But if you ever make a song called Ode to Radio, I'll just know that it's about us.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I'm going to add that to the list. Ode to Radio.
Ode to Radio.
Yeah, because, it's funny. I have what you were saying before about how do you compose. I have a list of tunes that I want to write. I mean, I have titles already that I want to write that I haven't had time to do yet. But I got a list, so I'm adding that one. Ode to Radio.
Ode to Radio.
Yeah, I like that,
Yeah. If anything, we need new stuff. We need new stuff.
Right.
And the more new stuff that comes out. So while we're here, what other new albums are either in the making with Linda or with Stan or Metropolitan Records, NYC.com?
Well, this one, is our baby right now. And just with the way the industry goes, it's hard for us to do much more than about one thing a year. Although now with having a lot of the online things, it's easier to do some compilations and stuff. And we are planning to come up with a blues compilation from different artists on the label, etc., to put together, because people seem to like those things.
I love the blues.
And I love the blues too. And people seem to like, putting different artists together on something. So that's something that'll be coming up pretty soon.
All right, then I'll have to ask that when that comes out that you let me know so we could do a radio show on that.
Okay, definitely.
I've always loved the blues. In fact,
he was asking Stan about what else was coming up on the horizon, and I said, well, you had the idea to put together.
Right. That should be coming out. We're hoping to do that in the spring, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2015.
Right.
Because these, you never know when these things are listened to. Right. Anything else that's in the current website catalog that you'd like to highlight that maybe we haven't talked about since the last show?
The only thing I was going to say is that, a couple of the musicians who are on the CD, both Todd Herbert and Vincent Herring, have some phenomenal CDs on the label. Both Todd has a CD called The Tree of Life, which I think is great.
And it's all his music.
It's all his music, because we wanted all original music again, because he wanted it, or asked me if I wanted him to do standards, and I said, I know you can play standards, you're great, but I want new music. So he did all new music for the CD, and it's great. And then Vince is on a few CDs, and he's just an incredible player. So those are two musicians who we love and who are on this CD too. So,
well, along with the Haunted Melodies, the songs of Rahsaan Roland Kirk, that CD is a great CD. It has so many wonderful jazz artists on it, playing all the music of Rahsaan, and that one's hard to get out to the general public because whenever you have various art, it comes out under the various artist catalog. You know?
Yeah.
Then now it's a little bit easier now when you get with the online music for people to find something. If you put it in, you might actually get there eventually. But that's a really great album, really really good album. Don't you think, Stan?
I love that album. In fact, it was one of the reviewers from Jazz Times who, at the end of the year, were putting the top 5 CDs, and he mentions that as for that year that came out as one of the top 5.
I mean, even though these CDs have come out since 1998 up till now, they're all, the one thing about jazz is still fresh. It's all fresh. It's still new and interesting. You know, even if you've never heard it before. You know, so there's a lot out there.
Is there a separate jazz music award?
It's part of the Grammys, but
no, I know. I know there's the Grammys, but is there a separate jazz music award
there isn't
thing?
really. There should be, but there isn't.
The only thing that there is like the Jazz Journalist Awards or whatever. But I'm not sure how that's done or anything else.
And then the Jazz Downbeat has like a Reader's Poll and a Critics Poll and things
Critics
like
Polls,
that.
and that's about it. You know.
Well, maybe you have to start something.
There you go.
in your spare time.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe what we'll do is this for everyone who is listening. Maybe we should segue out with Universal Freedom.
Yeah.
Because this was a free-form show.
This was free.
And we're free-form kind of people.
Yeah.
And just so you were listening to Along the Path, and this is the last song. This is track 11, Universal Freedom. And I thank very much Linda and Stan for being with me. As always, they're great guests. They have great stuff. They have great music, and they have great stories to go. So if you'd like to hear this, please catch us on YouTube. If you have questions that were not answered, send us an email at tcbradio.wcwp@yahoo.com, or you can even call us at the station at 516-299-2683 during business hours, and we'll take a message. And we'll get back to you. So with that, Stan and Linda, good luck with the album.
Thank you.
And we'll talk soon. And
just one last thing
sure.
in mentioning is that there will be a CD released.
Oh, yeah.
We have a show planned at one of the top jazz places in New York City, the Catano Jazz Club. And it's on January 22nd. And there's 2 shows. I think it's 8 and 10, Linda?
Yes.
All right, that's January 22nd, 2015. If you're listening to this in the future and it's now history, you blew it. So that's the sad thing about missing things.
Yeah.
Will you be recording that and making a DVD out of it?
There you go.
All right, so in case you miss it, then you'll catch it that way. So again, thanks so much. And for all those listening, this is Universal Freedom. Enjoy. And we'll see you back on the radio or back on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for listening and being a part of my radio family.
Thank you for all you do.